This is From a Room of Their Own. I'm Xavier Peng. I'm the founder and editor-in-chief of AROTO. Today, we're very lucky to have the writer, director, and the producer of the 2026 feature, Ephemera. And can I have the guests introduce themselves, please?
Hi, I'm Shan. I'm the writer director of Ephemera.
Hi, I'm Saul. I'm the producer of Ephemera.
Awesome. It's very amazing to see um, a film set in modern Chinese time and about a queer story. So I always start off with this question, like, how does it feel to have this film seen by the audiences? Now we're gone at the Tribeca, at Frameline, and we're coming to Outfest soon.
Yeah, it's just amazing, I guess.
Hmm.
Like what we've been getting are like very very positive responses. There were people coming up to us after the screenings and asking where they could purchase the film, stuff like that. Just made us feel very also encouraged, I guess, to kind of like keep making queer movies and the sensibility of being able to share a story like that and being able to have conversations with people after the screenings was really it's heartwarming and
Amazing. How did you guys meet and decide to work on this project together?
yeah. Should I start or do you want to start?
Well, I was actually introduced through another producer whose
Hmm.
name, yeah, who's not here, and they watched my previous feature, The Last of Darkness, who I believe you saw at Camden, and 3 years
Yes.
ago, and that was also about queer culture and nightlife in urban China, and I believe the producer Inks, they saw the film, and then they were very fascinated by it, and then they introduced me to the director at the time, and then I read the script and it said I was willing to be on board, and yeah, so that's how it worked out for me.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Ha-
and
ha-
it was just really kind of like a community coming together situation where we were kind of like looking at people from the community or just queer allies who who've done similar things um, before or who are just like out there and seeing suitable for the project, I guess. And just like from my own personal perspective, um, I think everyone wanted to make a first feature. To be honest, coming out
Hmm.
of the film school, yeah, I think it was just like a truly a blessing, like being able to find producers who worked so hard on this project, and obviously for something that's very low budget, and through them we were able to find local crew members,
Yeah. Yeah.
cast members. So it was really, yeah, it was really a collective effort.
That's awesome because I feel like working with experienced producers, like as a filmmaker myself, it's always like very scary, and I'm very curious to like learn about what are some things that you learned from each other, like throughout this process of making a feature and like working together in this way.
Mm. Oh wow, that's a good one.
Well, I think I was very impressed because I work with a lot of first-time directors. By the time I came on board, is that the budget is actually already raised. I didn't raise any money for this film,
Hmm.
so that's all directors. That's her effort, and
Oh,
she's able
awesome.
to, yeah, that's she's able to find friends and family who's willing to support a film, like without a heartbeat. And so that's like that's huge because it's very rare. I mean, even though people say, okay, this is love and blah blah blah, but I don't think it's very common for people to support a film like that. And it's also like, I
No.
think it's like at the beginning when you start to think of something, like you are very you want to make sure this is contained, and this is
Hmm.
something you can achieve in a very very small budget, and in order to accomplish that you need to write a script that's well done enough, that's both like craft wise that's good, and also like logistically possible to pull this off. And sometimes I mean, most of the time I don't think a lot of people can do both. And that's why a lot of people
Mm,
struggle to make the first features, because they are stuck in their idea that this film has to be done in this or that way. And they kind of
right.
lose that kind of flexibility. But I think Shan is incredibly flexible in terms of like making the film as contained as possible. So within that budget that she's been given, this is something that we can absolutely do in the best quality possible. And so that is very impressive, and that's something I learned from her.
Oh, oh, thanks.
Amazing. That's really
uh,
sweet. Yeah.
yeah, that's very sweet. Um, yeah, I mean, the fundraising part, that was just extremely fortunate, to be honest. I think it was only possible because we had so much local support. The script was flexible. I was, I was trying to be the most flexible as I could. But then, there is the story, the page count we had to finish basically. So it was really just, yeah, I think it was really like the local collaborators, whom were mostly introduced by you, and also just how each of them was so dedicated to the project in a way that I was just, yeah, I think I was really touched by like how everyone cared about the project. And it wasn't like easy days. It was 14 days of heat waves, and everyone was exhausted, but I think the vibes were just so good. And it was kind of like through that spirit that we were able to like pull this off.
Yeah, amazing. I love that because my identity is also destigmatizing the queer scene in modern China as a Chinese queer person. And hearing that is also a great example because there is a vibrant queer scene there in China that are not being recognized and seen by people like audiences from the West. So I think that's something that the film does really well. And um, being able to have that support in the production as well is another aspect. So on that note, I'm wondering like were there any obstacles and challenges like navigating the shoot, although people were involved and were very trying their best. I know maybe it could be about the crew, maybe it's about the content of the film, or maybe it's about like a lot of the film set in night, maybe that's a challenge. So any of that realm that you can share.
Finding Asher.
Oh, that part. Yeah, yeah, no, that's true. But I think finding Asher, because we ended up with the best possible solution.
That was a challenge, though. I mean, it was a challenge
It was, yeah.
because I think uh, we almost didn't shoot the film because we couldn't find
Oh wow.
the right Asher.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
Like she almost, that, yeah,
Yeah, I
right.
think it was like 3 weeks prior to principal photography. Well, now because we ended up having one, so it felt very behind us. I guess it didn't feel like a challenge anymore. But at the time, it felt, yeah, it felt impossible. It was like 3 weeks before the shoot. Everything was pretty much set, the schedule, locations, but then we don't have our protagonist, or like one of the protagonists. And it was really just like all hands on deck situation. Like all the producers were out there looking for anyone who's possibly right for the role. And it was just surprising, I think.
Yeah, because it was a narrow search anyway, like in the first place,
Mm,
because the actress needs to speak English really well because the
right.
character is the Chinese American. I mean,
But also Mandarin.
Mandarin, yeah, like they
Yeah,
can like bilingual basically, and
yeah.
that's rare. Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know. It was more difficult than I anticipated for some reason, because
yeah,
we started the casting in the United States. We had like a bunch of tapes, basically coming in from people who were mostly like born and raised here, and then the Mandarin element became a huge problem. We got some like tapes from great actors, obviously, but I think it sounded, yeah, it just like it didn't sound real for the character of
Yeah.
Asher because I wanted her to be like very comfortable, very fluent in a conversation with this local Shanghainese person who hasn't really been abroad basically.
Yeah.
So we sort of like, I think by the time I went back to Shanghai, we didn't have anyone, but we were still like confident because we were like, okay, we'll just find someone um, in China who can speak English basically. But then that also became a problem, right? If you've never lived, especially in the United States, it's kind of hard to pull it off. And so I think we auditioned. I don't remember how many, but we auditioned like through
like
many. Yeah,
dozens of candidates, and also, but I think it's really cool. And then the final, I mean, obviously the final film proved that to be successful because, like, that is a very unique character and a very new, you know, like type of character that's showing in Chinese cinema and in the
Absolutely.
current Chinese films. And because the difficulty of finding that one is exactly why this is kind of a special film because it's showcased because because if there's a lot of films like that in China, then it will be much easier to find that character. Like, imagine this is American film. It will just be so many of them because there's so many films like, I mean, in this sense, like a modern queer, like contemporary and queer romance. And this is just so much more common in the Western world. But it's not, it's very rare in China still. So that's why this is like a completely, it's like a very new character type. That's why,
but also I
yeah.
think really just I want to give the credit to Yvonne just being so special.
Yeah.
I think
Hmm.
because it's not just the bilingual part. There
It's
were
a
definitely
whole package that she
yeah
just fits. And then she speaks to a lot of people, like a lot of young people.
yeah.
And
I think
yeah.
what struck me most was really just how obviously she's had this lived like life experience of like living both sides of the Pacific Ocean, but then it's how she can be like boisterous at one time, but then also very vulnerable and
Mm-hmm.
genuine.
Yeah.
I think that's really the key thing she pulled off, and I think the reason that I wasn't like without her I wasn't ready to shoot the film. I was basically going to pull the plug 3 weeks before the shoot because I just didn't want the character of Asher to be this vain online persona.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Um, and that's probably the most difficult part. Kind of like being able to see through that boisterousness while still believing the fact that she is that Gen Z character who has that side. So I think that was the most special part. I think Yvonne pulled off.
Yeah. And like Soul says, what makes the film unique and the character unique. And just following up on that, how does the collaboration process looking like? As a first time feature director and a first time actor, like how are the dynamics and relationship built there?
It was great. It was probably the best thing that ever happened to me as a director. To be honest, it was just it was magical in a way that they both were so generous with their time and energy. It was again it was 3 weeks before the shoot. We found Yvonne. We
Hmm.
basically I mean she was like living her best life. She was doing her like graduation trip. She was like on that trip, auditioned very casually. Then I called her and basically begging her to come back to Shanghai immediately because we need to start rehearsing. So the
Hmm.
rehearsal sessions went on for I think almost 3 weeks. We were basically just doing as many rehearsals as possible, and because I had the luxury of just like their devoted time, we were able to sort of like I think we rehearsed the film linearly, which was
Hmm.
very interesting because it kind of like follows the narrative, right? The two strangers being introduced to each other at the very beginning, and obviously I was able to facilitate that. And
Yeah.
then it was them like slowly getting to know each other through the rehearsal sessions, as we were rehearsing the scenes in which they were getting to know each other. So there was
Mm-hmm.
this very interesting, like, trust building, friendship evolving process that goes parallel with the narrative. And obviously, as a first time feature director, I was trying to like do my homework as well, and give them as much support as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So really from the get-go, I felt like the dynamic was very lively, but also very even. I felt like, because we were able to just speak our minds, even at the times that we don't agree with
Yeah.
each other. And that was truly important, because I just feel like, especially for this film, they should have as much agency as I do. Basically, it's kind of this acting experience that they have to internalize a lot, through the rehearsal process. And I think the best example was later in the rehearsal process. And
Mm-hmm.
we were going to rehearse that fight scene, that
Mm-hmm.
very long fight scene, which started as something that's like cute and interesting, but then ended up being like one of the most heartbreaking moments.
Yeah.
So that scene, I had like I know they have to fight, and I know they had to fight for this reason.
Mm-hmm.
But I went into the rehearsal feeling not 100% about the writing, to be honest,
Yeah.
because yeah, it was kind of like me fighting as two people, in my head. But then it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't until I brought the scene into the rehearsal room, because at the time they had already known each other a little bit better. But I think
Mm-hmm.
at but I think that day, when they like read the pages, they were just like, nah. Uh, so it became this moment where they took the lead and started improvising the fight.
Mm-hmm.
And that's basically, I mean, they basically wrote that scene in a way, because I was kind of just there. um, the room got kind of tense, and then I wished I wasn't there. But then I was able to kind of just like jot down all the things they said in that situation, and organized it in a way that that became way more powerful than it was, where they sort of like used like the most personal, the most tender things they just shared maybe a few hours ago to attack each other. And that's how that really helped me kind of like get to the bottom of the scene, because the whole thinking of having the other queer couple arguing in a language that you don't understand, or that's like made up, was kind of like trying to say in my mind that people in love a lot of times use the most intimate things to attack each other. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah. So that was it. Yeah, it was a magical experience working with both of them. And yeah, I think they gave so much to the film.
Yeah. That's really fascinating to hear that story about improvisation, because my first impression of the characters are that I know these people. So yeah. Um, Going off of like more details on the film, one of my favorite parts of the film is that it showcases like a very authentic Chinese nightlife scene, which is, where the backdrop of these two people's relationship and stories. So, why do you want to select the specific spots, the malls and hospitals, like all of these places, like in the film, um, to be a part of that backdrop of these two people.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, the mall was the mall was kind of going off of the thinking that I wanted them to feel like they are the only two people awake at the moment. It's kind of this like us against the world um, situation. That's why the Pac-Man chase scene came in, and I think it also. I mean, in my mind, it also speaks to like consumerism a little bit
Yeah.
because you go back to China and just see all these fancy malls being built like overnight. But then obviously, I still want what happens in a mall for them to be romantic. So that's
Hmm.
kind of like balancing an intellectual idea that's like hidden very far back, and also the fact, that I still need to foreground the romance between the two.
Yeah, absolutely. And just for the various locations of the film, because this question might be a little bit for Seoul as well, how difficult it was to like let them know about the logistics. I'm asking the question because I want my audience to know like the difference in production for this for China and the US and other countries. Like how are these negotiation processes like for filming locations, and like are they difficult to navigate?
Well, I wasn't. I mean, I we had a location manager, and he's based in
Mm,
Shanghai. He's very familiar with all these locations, and he helped scout and did a lot of research, and he helped
Yeah,
negotiate, and along
for
with yeah.
he's actually the one who took me to the mall.
Okay,
Yeah.
for the he showed you like the mall, right?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
had this idea of like,
and he
somewhere
found the mall for you.
commercial. Yeah,
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 yeah.
and he took me to that specific
Yeah,
mall.
because he's
Yeah.
shot a bunch of fruit. That's his name. He's our line producer, and he
mm,
works as both a sound recordist, but not for this film. He usually works as a sound recordist too, and a line producer. So
mhm,
he's just very experienced in a lot of indie projects, especially in Shanghai. And
mhm,
I mean, I think sometimes I think especially filming with such a like a smaller crew because we have like I think a maximum of 30 people, like a regular of like between 25 to 30 people. So it's a small crew, and and the location managers is very powerful. Yeah, that's
yeah,
basically the
Yeah.
gist. Yeah.
amazing. Yeah. I really want to talk about the surrealist elements in this film because that is very fascinating to me. Like the concept of, like a time cube that stemmed from like a COVID idea, that it's very unique to Chinese experience. And also, the design of the reenactment of classic films. Um, like, why do you feel like these surrealist elements add to the story and that you want to put in it?
Mm. I guess in my mind they were never that surreal. To well, to start with, the reenactments of the classic films. I think to me it was in character because they just spend this whole night together and now they have to say goodbye, and they know it very well of the fact that it's sooner than later then they will part ways. But then that becomes appropriate for this like longest goodbye where where you basically fantasize about all sorts of like endings you could have had basically. But then also, I was thinking Asher is an actor, and it's only
Hmm.
natural that her mind goes to you know say a scene from Lost Caution that feels just so so poignant. But I think
Yeah,
given Asher being Asher and how
yeah.
she would kind of like fantasizing being in like a Chinese Republican Chinese spy movie.
Mhm.
That's like inside joke between them one last time, and they each kind of like say their iteration of a possible goodbye. That's that's exciting, and it just like the differences between the dreams or the fantasies. I think also show how how differently they feel about the relationship. Um, and Tori obviously, was more caught up by this night, I think. Whereas Asher is ready to kind of turn this into something bigger than life. I think that was the thinking. And
Yeah.
going to the cubes, I think it also felt real because the whole spatial
Yeah.
temporal companions. It was
Mm-hmm.
very much a real concept, and I do still remember the first time I saw that concept. I mean, I wasn't living in China at the moment. I was in New York City, but I think everyone was kind of like disheartened by the situation, and so a lot of like the terms that were coined by the state were like discussed. And I remember the first time seeing that, I remember thinking to myself that it's kind of funny that it sounds romantic, and also it was during post production where we decided to kind of like shrink the frame size to make it more illustratable, or illustrative of the concept, and to make it basically cuter between them, because the whole thing is about querying something that's just existing for effect, like it or not, but they have to kind of like make their own version of it and live with it.
Yeah. Amazing answer. Yeah. Awesome. So yeah, I guess for my last question, I'm just curious to learn from both of you the upcoming works, like anything that you're working on coming out. I know So just got a film in Locarno the day that we're doing the interview, and yeah, just talk a little about your future plans and potential collaborations.
Future plans. Oh, do I want to start? I don't know if I can like really get into it.
Well,
but
there's a new project, but we can't say anything.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah, because it's so early in development, and but yeah,
It will be queer
yeah,
still.
yeah,
So that's not going anywhere.
yeah,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, yeah, lesbianism, queerness.
yeah,
Yeah, still some like genre elements.
yeah,
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 yeah, which
And are you guys working together again?
hopefully, yeah.
yeah.
Okay,
Hopefully, yeah.
amazing.
It's still very early, but hopefully.
Yeah.
Oh, and for so do you have some like specific like works of yours that you want to share as well?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I have a feature. I mean, I have this new film at Locarno, which is a short, and but that's that's kind of starting the festival journey. So in terms of less than a minute. Basically, I have a feature documentary that's in production. We are going to edit in August as a
Mm-hmm.
rough cut. So hopefully, it will be premiering like in 2028. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, thank you, Shang and So, for doing this interview. Please check out Ephemera at Outfest in July, and very happy to have this conversation. And thank you again.